It's good to see you on this Tuesday morning. I hope that you're well. This is Your World, and my name is Winnie Lubeme. Of course, it's all about a very important conversation that honestly should be on every person's lips, and this is as far as period poverty and period shame is concerned. And I know if you live in this country or even outside the country, then you know what happened in this as far as last week. The entire country was quote unquote, and as we usually get united when something, either we're trolling someone or something bad is happening, is when sort of like everybody comes together to have such conversation. It's all about, period poverty. And this is after one amazing woman. We have her on set today, a bold statement and a bold move. And this is as far as addressing what is happening as far as period poverty and period shame is concerned. And of course, we'll be looking at that in a short while. So welcome to the show. We have a lot to discuss on today's conversation. And of course, as we all know, on any given day, there's so many things that would worry a woman, all right, that may cross and actually, a female's mind. But again, should one of those worries be, about having access to affordable and sanitary feminine hygiene products? Well, menstruation may not be a topic that many people would want to discuss, and this is despite the fact that it is a natural, biological, human process that girls and women actually, go through. And of course, this again recurs every month. So the question that we are asking you today is, what will it take to end period shame and period poverty? Because again, in the country, 65% of females are not able to afford sanitary pads, with 1 million school, going girls, again, missing school, and this is as far as their periods is concerned. So what will it take to end period shame and period poverty? That is the question that we're posing to you today. I can see a number of feedback, on Facebook and on Twitter at NTV Kenya at Lubembe_Winnie. But before I introduce my guest and before we go on with the conversation, take a look at this.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I do stand seeking your guidance on the Speaker's rule number 5. In regards to the dress code, and I need to seek your advice if Senator Gloria is appropriately dressed for the House. Thank you.
Are you saying that the dress code is transparent? They are revealing? Because I can see she's in a suit. What's wrong with her suit?
I would request that, Mr. Speaker, you ask Senator Gloria to just step in front of you, and you'll be able to see how her dress is very messed up, which is not decent.
I'm dressed as per the standing orders. I'm covered, I have a suit, I have collars. I'm just short of a tie. I'm very disappointed. I'm actually more disappointed because the point of order that is being raised to try and attack an accident that is natural, because I have stained my clothes. And at the end of the day, I just want to know, while we are discussing this issue that is not even in the order paper, is it because senators are not women who have periods? I want to know, because then maybe I shouldn't be in this house because I have periods, Mr. Speaker. And on my way here, I actually stained my dress. So, and this is the period stigma, Mr. Speaker. This is the period stigma that is making our girls kill themselves. We have a girl who killed herself because of the same issue that I'm going through. And now I understand why. Because it is the women who actually are trying to make this a crime.
If you hear her sentences or her words, she's actually raising something. She's not on her menstrual cycle. It is quite clear that from what she's trying to share with the rest of the world is that she's picketing.
I think Gloria has achieved to get the Senate to discuss something that is pertinent. The manner in which she may have done it may be not acceptable to the senators, but periods are a natural process that women go through in this country. Mr. Speaker, there are many girls who cannot access pads. And there are many girls who get into the situation that Gloria has modeled today in the Senate.
So, Senator Gloria, I sympathize with you that you're going through the natural act of menstruation. You have stained your wonderful suit. I'm not asking you to leave because you're out of order, but I'm asking you to leave so that you go change and come back with a cloth that is not stained. We appreciate you. Kindly proceed to go change and come back to the chambers.
Well, the entire world went silent. Well, let's talk periods, shall we, ladies? Yes. We have Gloria, a Roma-nominated senator, with us this morning, and I'm really, really curious, to understand what goes through your mind rewatching
it's
that.
So weird. I was like, that's what happened. I was actually seeing the majority leader go like, oh my God, when I passed by him because he could see the stain.
Yeah. Several sentiments that were raised. Do you feel you were appropriately dressed? Senator Ledama said you were clearly picketing, you are not on your periods.
When he was giving his, he said, no, she's clearly not on the period. I said, but really, okay, you need to confirm. How do you call,
How do you confirm?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. We'll have more conversations on the same. We have Janet Mbugua. Listen, all these ladies, really, they're not new to you. You know them. Janet Mbugua, media personality and founder in Wadada Foundation. Thank you so much for coming by today. I'm also curious to hear what you have to say after watching that.
No, I think that is probably one of the best statements we've had in the last decade around period stigma. Yeah. I think what the senator did is a necessary reminder of why we need to keep having this conversation. Yeah. She's kind of revived a movement which needed that kind of statement, because to her point, there's so many people who are struggling with the stigma, girls, women, people don't have access. We've worked with Yasmin as well in the space. So when I saw it, I had different emotions just like everyone else. I was upset the way she was because of how she was being castigated. I was confused and I was really disappointed because I thought, 10 years ago, the conversation on periods was center stage. We thought we'd made headway over the last decade, but I think the more things change, the more they stay the same. Yeah. So we need to start asking ourselves, what is it about women's bodies that trigger people so badly? Absolutely. What is it about bodily autonomy and rights and agency? And how is it that missing education for girls is not considered a big deal? Right. So there's a lot of questions that came to mind, but I think it's one of the best things that has happened. It's a bold statement, and I think the senator has inspired a white suit phenomenon. I
mean, listen, I was expecting a white suit phenomenon. Where is it?
That we need everyone to rally around. Where is your white suit?
Right? White suit is actually in the dry cleaners.
It's in the dry cleaners?
Yeah, and they were like, this stain is hard to get rid of. So they are trying to figure out, and because I want to keep it as a sort of thing that I can use to remember, so I'm insisting that it has to be clean. You people really need to work on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's the only white suit I had.
Don't worry, Janet and Yasmin are representing with the white movement. I like that. And of course, Yasmin Mohammed, founder, superb, and this is a community-based organization, again, that champions for the same. It's so good to have you this morning, Yasmin. Yeah, again, what are your sentiments watching that?
I think for me, that was a very courageous and bold move. For so long, we've been advocating for matters menstrual health in the country, and personally started a petition that was working around reviewing upwards of the budgetary allocation. And I'm glad that Senator Gloria is here because when we talk about period poverty and period shame, it doesn't happen at Parliament only, but also girls who are in school stains their cloth. And for what happened sometimes back with Josephine, a girl who committed suicide, it was a similar thing that happened to Gloria. And what does it mean? It means that our girls also need to be taken through psychosocial support on matters menstrual health. And also let us make this conversation now uncomfortable for them, for policymakers, because if we continue just talking and making noise on social media, they'll not do anything. So that was very courageous of you, Madam Senator. And I even tweeted and said, like, we need to march and put on white suits whereby we'll like intentionally stay in our white suit so that action will be taken. If we'll have to go uncomfortably, then so be it.
Yeah. And then my question is, does it have to get to that point where such bold statements have to be made for us to see action? What is it about periods and menses that is very uncomfortable to talk? I mean, we were talking about this yesterday. Like, majority of the times it's hush hush. No, don't talk about it. You're the issue. Where are we talking about this on a table? You said, you know, when you had your first, you know, your first menses, you could not say anything to anyone because it's like, you know. So, but I literally don't understand. What is it?
It's a combination of so many things, culturally, politically. And so culturally, there's a lot of shame around, again, I always go back to our bodies and how they function. And so periods is supposed to be considered something private. And in many ways it is, but if it wasn't disrupted as badly as it is, then maybe we wouldn't be having this conversation. But at the end of the day, there's a huge problem with access. And access disrupts people's lives. And so I think we need to, you asked whether it needs to get to this. Sometimes I feel like
it has to.
It has to. It's very unfortunate. 10 years ago, Periods of Shame was a story that showed two girls who didn't have access to products. And it kind of shocked people that they were using chicken feathers and goat hide and soil. This was 10 years ago. It inspired the menstrual policy to be developed, which started in 2015. It was launched in 2020. Good move. The Basic Amendment Education Act was introduced in 2017. Good move. And yet here we are. I think there's a lot of token good moves. They just, for ground, it's very different. So that is the unfortunate thing. So to your point, I do think this is the year to probably go above and beyond to make a statement and say, if we're not listening to the senator, to activists, to policymakers, to the data, if we're not listening, then maybe we need to shake the tree and we need to disrupt and we need to say, you not listening means a girl is missing out on school, means a girl is going to get, possibly can get pregnant because she's vulnerable. It means a woman has to choose between food and sanitary products for her family. If you don't want to listen, then maybe we need to get bold. And for the men who are watching, who are listening, there's been a lot of male allies come into the space, which is amazing. Which is amazing. However, there's still so much shaming and abuse. Even following what the senator did, even sometimes in the work that I've done, I've been met with, why do you have to talk about this thing? Why do you have to make a big deal about it? So can we extend empathy and understanding? We're not doing this for fun. We're not doing this because it's a trend or it's a vibe. We're doing this because people's lives depend on it. So we're going to need to really shake the tree, and we're going to need policy implementation to be followed through. And we're just going to have to declare this the year of white suits. Until something happens.
We're going to wear white suits throughout.
Yes, 1 year.
And Madam Senator, I also want to hear this from you. I mean, does it have to get to this point where we literally have to make this bold statements for people to listen? Because it is not a new phenomenon, right? It's natural, if anything. If you miss your period, it means there could be something wrong, right? But really, can't we just have these conversations on the dining table, dads, uncles, brothers, everybody seated, so that, you know, we get that better understanding as far as menses and what really it takes? Because it's not just staining your suit, right?
So for me, you know, the idea that, first of all, everyone wanted to say, it's fake, she's faking it. Because if it's fake, it's okay. So if it's fake, it's, we know it's Nikki Pindi, it's just like she's trying to trend, you know? And every time I had the conversation with someone, it was more like, oh no, wait, this has happened. And I actually went back to I had the moment of going back to the car, let's go and change. And then I was like, hell no. You're always saying, end period, you know, walk the talk. And then when you now tell people like, you know, actually, it was intentional in the sense that I wanted them to see the stain. Yes,
Yeah.
that was intentional. And you know, people still want to think it's fake because they actually don't believe these things happen. Because
We're in denial.
I literally have had so many interviews, and most of my male colleagues are like, yeah, but really you guys don't stain that, because they've never seen it. Because when do they see a stain? We're always covering, we're always, so there's no, at any one given point actually, someone will be like, but we've never seen that, because we always keep it, you know, hidden.
Yeah.
And the unfortunate thing with that is when it's out of sight, then it's out of mind. Then you try and tell people that this is actually a shadow pandemic, and they're like, well, watcha, you're just looking for a cause, you know? And you're like, no, we're talking about HIV prevalence, we're talking about teenage pregnancies, we're talking about early marriages, we're talking about like the domino effect of just not having that access to pads or menstruation, the menstrual hygiene products is really, it's actually, you can give all the condoms you want to give, but if you're not dealing with certain issues like period poverty, it's actually like a zero-sum effect, because the same girls are the ones who are actually now putting themselves out for commercial sex just so they can get that
the money to get
50 shilling, 100 shillings so that they can buy the pads. So, and the people who are actually participating in this, because they know these are young girls, are not necessarily going out of their way to use condoms, you know. So it's people would like to think of it as it's not happening and it's not something that we should deal with, but it is, and we have to deal with it. And so in the last session, I had already started working with the legal department on a bill for the Free Sanitary Towels Act. And I actually think it should be a standalone act, because this whole idea of putting in a paragraph as an amendment within the Education Act and saying, okay, we've sorted out that problem. There's so many things we have to deal with around menstruation. So what happened is, this particular situation was like a reminder, don't go back home. Like, don't feel the pressure to cover. Don't, because what you're trying to advocate for in the future, which is literally when the bill comes out, is this whole period shaming thing. So I think, honestly, I didn't, first of all, think it was going to go that viral, because one, I had already stayed in Senate for like half an hour. I was in the house literally like for quite some time. I actually was in and out of the house doing normal things. And I just didn't think, I thought the statement was more for my colleagues, so that in the near future, if they happen to come across my bill, they'll probably think, oh, okay, actually, we need to support this, considering ABCD. But then the way it morphed into this,
I mean, listen, it sparked conversation. There's a number of people who were supporting you, but there are a number of people who were like, aye, come on. And what you said is very profound, that you were asked, like, really, do you guys stay? That's just...
Three things that I was asked that was shocking is, first of all, wacha kutubeba. Of course, you know when your periods are, like, as if there's a timer, and then it's like,
I mean, there's people with irregular periods, honestly. It could happen to anyone.
But most people don't, you know, the thing is now the ignorance around periods is, one, there's an assumption that because you don't see it, because of the way we handle it, so there's an assumption that everyone has an alarm set for when their period is on, then they go and put on a pad or something like that. So they were like, you can't tell us that something like that can happen. Then the second thing is, that blood was red. So I was like, but it's blood. It's red blood. Yeah, but periods sometimes I see. And okay, so for me also, I was, that because of the comments and everything, I was like, let me go see why my blood is red. Then I also found out that apparently on the different days of your period, you have like a different shade of red. So even for me, it was a learning moment. I was like, oh, okay, now I see that. And then the idea that you don't bleed that much.
I mean, listen, can we just take a break, because I'm feeling some sort of way. But of course, when we come back, we'll also address the whole question about policy, you know, and also participation. Because again, like we're saying, most of the time, this conversation is like, you're an issue, and okay, you know, just deal with it. But then again, so then how do we get our brothers, our fathers, our uncles, our nephews, and everybody alike to just, you know, have such conversations, so that again, we end period shame and period stigma. So much to come, so much, you know, as far as what you guys have to say. And this is in regards to the question that we're asking you. What will it take for us to end period shame course, we'll be looking at your feedback after the break. Stay with us. This is Your World. You know what to do at NTV Kenya, both on Facebook and on Twitter, is how you can reach us. You want to call us live? Again, feel free to do so. The numbers will be down on your screen in just a second. But remember the question, what will it take for us to end the period shame? So stay with us. See you very shortly.
Want to know the biggest story of the week? Do not worry. The Weekly Review has got you covered for in-depth analysis of politics, business, governance, as well as social issues. The Weekly Review covers it all. For well-researched, exclusive and investigative content, read the Weekly Review every Sunday on Nation e-paper and on www.nation.africa. Free of charge.
My name is Michael Olunga. Watch Spot On every Monday, 10 p.m. on NTV.
Centum Real Estate brings to you 265 Elma 1 Apartments, the newest and most stylish development in Kasarani. Pay a deposit of 250,000 Kenya shillings and the balance in flexible installments or mortgage financed.
With Glovo, you have anything you want from your city in your hands. Kama unatamani ugali beef ama fried chicken, order Glovo ujaribu restaurant mpya. Tamu. Kama game inawaka na unataka drinks zaidi, order Glovo ushangilie timu yako. Na kama your little one amemess na diaper zimeisha, order Glovo and save the day. With Glovo unaweza track order yako na kuongea na customer support, which is always available. Download the app and order anything you want from your city. We'll deliver.
Welcome back. Glad you're still with us. And of course, I mean, yeah, the conversation still continues even during the break. But welcome back. Glad you're still with us. The show is Your World. And of course, today it's all about period poverty and period shame. And of course, like I said when we started the show, this is a conversation that we all should be talking about, regardless or irregardless, as the former president used to say, irregardless. Whether you are male, female, it doesn't matter. We all should be talking about this. And this is as far as menses, periods, whatever it is, Mashiro, whatever name that you call it, all right? Let's talk about it. And of course, the question that we're asking you today is, what will it take for us to end period shame? So I can see a number of you have a lot to say, all right? So Stella Shamala, very quickly on Facebook says, a sufficient supply of water to our communities' governments to sink as many boreholes as possible and connect tap water to where necessary, since our NGOs are doing a good job in donating reusable or washable sets of sanitary towels to women, a move that makes a lot of sense, all right? And then Prince Caro says, education and acceptance that periods are a natural and normal thing to women. In fact, periods are evidence that a woman is a real, fully mature woman. Periods are just indication that this woman can sire children. All right. And then who else says, this is Martin Disho, who says, it will take 47 women representatives, women governors, tax exempted local producer, and rigorous distribution model. And then very quickly, Godfrey Omondi says, if you want to end period shame, you must work hard to end poverty. I don't know what you guys have to say to this, but yeah, that is what. But again, keep the feedback coming. That is at NTV Kenya, both on Facebook and on Twitter, and tag me as well at Lubembe_Winnie. So again, former president, that is Uhuru Kenyatta, actually signed into law, the Basic Education Amendment Act, and this is of 2016, and this is what it says very quickly. Says the Basic Education Act, Section 39, says it shall be the duty of the Cabinet Secretary to provide free, sufficient, and quality sanitary towels to every girl child registered and enrolled in public basic education institution who has reached puberty, and provide a safe and environmentally sound mechanism for disposal of the sanitary towels. For ground, like Janet said, vitu ni different. What is happening?
It's sporadic.
It's sporadic.
It's not sustainable.
All right.
It starts with a lot of vigor. Then it disappears.
Okay.
And periods don't end after 3 months.
True.
So you hear girls talk about they had a supply of 3 months or 6 months. If it doesn't have a coordinated approach, if it doesn't have a multi-stakeholder approach, if there isn't something cohesive and coordinated, it will continue to fail.
Yeah.
And if there isn't, I think what the senator is saying about there being a standalone bill, I think what Yasmin has been pushing for a lot, which is an increased budgetary allocation.
Yeah.
If some of these factors are prioritized, we'll see movement. And then the government also needs help with implementation partners. That's critical, is allow implementation partners to carry out some of the work around distribution. The dream is obviously to have tax-exempt or free sanitary products, but we actually have to start with why we're here this morning, which is having the conversation, which, like you mentioned, dinner table, at the pub, with your friends, with your family,
everywhere,
being normalized at school level. I know that there's menstrual hygiene, information being given in school. I don't think it's as comprehensive as a lot of the issues.
Listen, when we were in school, we used to be separated. Girls, the boys, and then the girls alone at the
And that's why the stigma persists today, because those boys have now become the men who are saying that is none of my business. But it is. It's everyone's business, because it's about it's about safety, it's about health. And periods are linked to a lot of intersectional issues, gender-based violence, as the Senator has mentioned, HIV, poverty. There's so many intersectional issues, so you can't keep disregarding it. You can't keep setting it aside as if it's that thing for Anawake. It's an all of us issue, and half the world is on their period.
That's true.
So also, we're here, we're not going anywhere.
No.
The least we can do is kind of scale access to information and products. Scotland have led with that. They're the first country that has made it free. I think it should set an example for countries simply prioritizing this issue. It's prioritized seasonally. When all of this dies down, we're going to go back to the drawing board.
Yes.
I don't think she'll let that happen, though. I feel like she's going to be like, this is not dying down. But that's what tends to happen. There's a trend and it goes down. And that can't be sustained. So, so about the government program, it's been sporadic and interrupted, but it's because there's no coordinated approach. And the policy implementation hasn't been carried out well. I think Kilifi and Migori have tried to localize it, but it's yet to be assented. So there's no prioritization at all. And until it is, until there's coordination, prioritization, resourcing, and education, we're going to find ourselves back here. Menstrual Hygiene Day, May 28th, we'll find ourselves back here talking about this again.
That's true. Same old. Yeah. And policies, let's just talk about it.
You know, that government program is it's a good program, and it started on donor funding. And they started at 420 million, I think, in the first cycle. And the idea was to see how to be able to increase that budget to an extent that all the schools, because as you have read, it states that to each and every student who is in a government school who started their periods. Now the issue is, first of all, and it does not, when you read that amendment, and this now requires legal interpretation, it does not give a frequency. So first of all, one of if you implement that law as it is, if I give out pads this year, you know I can stay for 5 years without giving out pads. Yeah, because I've done it.
There's nothing
that binds me as a government to do it. It's not like, it actually depends on the political goodwill of the government in place. The other thing is, we're just addressing that access in terms of giving that pad.
but we are not addressing issues around, let's say, the taxation, around the local manufacturers.
Quality
I like the comment
well.
that someone said, if we have to deal with period poverty, we have to deal with poverty.
True.
That's true. Dealing with poverty also means that we push the local industries in whichever forum. One of the local industries is actually the manufacturing of the sanitary towels.
Yeah.
So you find that they are really struggling to compete with the importers of the same end users and products, which is the pad, because their taxes are high in terms of the products that they use, the material that they import to use. They still get taxed. That's one thing. Another thing is, when you look at the procurement of the same, let's say like they started with 420 million, and then unfortunately, the 12th Parliament actually went, debated, and they were like, we don't care about this periods thing. They slashed it into 260.
Yeah.
So, but even if we're given 50 million, can somebody show me the procurement? Of course, we'll follow the Procurement Act 2015, but the regulations around it does not. So, for instance, they will decide, okay, we are going to give people with disability, because they're trying to also meet the AGPO. So we will prioritize companies of people with disability, youth, women, right? Which is progressive. But those companies are on paper, people with disability, youth, and women. And those companies, the easiest thing for them to do is they just go and import the Chinese products. Now, if we're dealing with poverty in terms of trying to push the local manufacturers, you go down to Mlolongo, those companies are closing. I know of a company in Tharaka Nithi that has closed because they were like, we can't compete. By the time we put in our labor costs, our material and everything, we can't compete with the importers of the finished product. So they shut down. So then we are exporting our jobs when we actually have an opportunity with a crisis to create an industry which we push. There is this big, people are saying, oh, you have to go really to the grassroots and give these pads. When you go to certain grassroots, they don't even have ways to dispose the pads. So then the issue of biodegradable sanitary towels come in, which is so expensive. Then you talk about the issue of the cups, the menstruation cups, and reusable sanitary towels. But you know, all these things can't just be done like, oh, the most sustainable is cups. So you give me a cup and I am in Ijara, in Garissa. I don't have water.
There's no water.
So now I'm forced to deal with all sorts of other infections because you've given me this cup and I don't have water. You give me reusable sanitary towels down in the grassroots and I probably myself bathe like once in every 3 days. Now I'm supposed to wash this pad every day with what? So sometimes also I know there's that push to like, you know, be eco-friendly and biodegradable and the environment. But realistically speaking, we also need to consider the dynamics around it.
And Yasmin, again, you said you had to use old clothes, right, for your period for a long time. Just take us through that, just in case someone is watching us and thinking, okay, I don't know how that is. I hashtag can't relate, right? And even for the men who are like, okay, you know, just paint that picture for us so that we really see what usually happens. What are the risks? This is the whole question about hygiene and even the, you know, the risk of leakages as well, right? From
my lived experience, so I grew up under the custody of my grandmother. And she had little information around sexual and reproductive health and rights. And coming from the marginalized community, which is the Nubian community, it's driven by cultural values and norms, whereby for her, she was like, we used to use this kind of thing, so you'll also end up using the cloth. So I started off my menses while I was in school. It was in the afternoon, and I was not even prepared for menstruation. So I stained my uniform. It was light blue in color. I schooled at Olympic Primary School, so you can imagine the color of the uniform and the blood stain. So it went through to the desk that I was sitting on. So I don't know if Senator's period as well stained the seat she was sitting on, because for me it stained that desk. And I had to sit the whole afternoon so that I wait for all the pupils to go out so that I could stand and do something. So my friend was the one who advised me on wrapping my sweater, school sweater, around my waist. And we thought of looking for something that we'll use to wipe or rather clean the desk. So I went back home again as the norm. I took we call it gurubaba in Nubian language. So I tore the gurubaba and just made some, I made it comfortable for me at that period of time. So I used it as a period absorbent. So I ended up using that cloth for a longer period of time, and it used to soil my cloth. Every time it used to soil my cloth. So for me, it was just normal, like soiling my cloth, it was a normal thing. And I was lucky enough to be recruited in one of the organizations in Kibra that supports women and girls. So when I was recruited in that organization, that's when I started having access to menstrual products. And also while I was in school, I used to access 1 or 2 sanitary towels. I didn't even have information on how I'm supposed to put it on.
True. Yeah.
So when we talk about menstrual health management, then we need to facilitate ways of like how we are supposed to put on the sanitary towels. Am I putting it on well? Because you end up putting on a sanitary towel, then you find yourself soiling your cloth. So I got information around menstrual health in that organization, and upon exiting, I thought of, okay, I'm coming from this community whereby they rarely talk about menstrual health, and menstruation is considered a taboo. So what will I do? So I started an initiative whereby I convened or organized women and girls from my community and started talking about menstruation. We engaged the boy-child religious leaders in that conversation. And I'm glad that in our area of jurisdiction, at least women and girls now have access to not only sanitary towels, but also knowledge and information on menstrual health. And I believe by doing so, we are able to create an inclusive and transformative environment whereby we'll change the perception around menstrual health. And also coming from the grassroots, so many women, especially in the Kibra community who lives from hand to mouth, they're not able to afford this menstrual products.
That's true.
So you find a Mama Mboga having making a profit of 100 shillings, and she has like 2 to 3 daughters in the house. Even her herself is menstruating. And the sanitary towel that we've given that girl is only maybe 2 packs of sanitary towel that, let me acknowledge the likes of Inua Dada and CARE for supporting us with the sanitary towels. Then when we give the lady or the young girl that sanitary towel, they end up sharing amongst the household. So it's not even enough for them. So as a grassroots movement, we are really in the front line in advocating for reviewing upwards the budgetary allocation for sanitary towels so that each and every girl will have access to this product.
Absolutely.
Talking about the Basic Education Act number 17, they're talking about girls who are enrolled in public schools. Does it mean that girls who are enrolled in private schools, they're not menstruating?
There's an assumption that they can afford. Right?
Looking at the schools, looking at public schools, they don't even have safe disposal mechanism for these disposable sanitary towels. Again, it's health hazardous to them and also environment. Talking about climate change. So where are we heading to? We have a policy. We have menstrual health policy that was launched in 2020. Have they domesticated the policy to the grassroots level? Do people know that the MHM policy exists?
Let me just make a comment on 1 or 2 things that she has mentioned. I think we'll be too ambitious to now start saying every other girl today is going to get free sanitary towels from government.
But I mean, shouldn't it be the case? There are condoms everywhere.
No, I'm a very pragmatic person. Very pragmatic. And you know, I'm just even trying to look at the budget allocations for sanitary towels. And the assumption that in every public school is the same assumption that we make when we are doing distribution. Even condoms are distributed in public, for instance, in public facilities, universities. So that we really, we have to start from somewhere. It's the same way when I've gotten so many approaches and guys are like, oh, we have biodegradable pads, but they're a bit more expensive. I'm like, wait. You're talking about biodegradable. As we just want pads as of now.
Let's just start from there.
So, you have to start from somewhere and then get to the place where Spain is, where they've given 3 days
3 to 5 days
of leave. But by the time they go to the 3 days of leave, trust you me, they have gone through understanding what it means. They've given the access, they've given. So we have to start from somewhere. So that I would say to demand that We have sanitary towel dispensers all over the
They are
country.
doing it.
Yeah.
They're doing it.
It's not realistic now, but
It's not
something we have to build
realistic
towards.
now
Yes.
because also we have to understand that we are also economically as a country we are still trying to figure out how to come out of that.
Yeah.
And even when I'm having these conversations with the president, I'm very aware that I'm having the same conversations. I'm not oblivious of the situation that we are in,
Yeah, what is
and that's
happening on
why
the
for
ground,
me I'm like driving. I'm actually driving a private, what do you call it, a PPP,
Yeah.
so that it's more like I'm pushing
Public-private
you
partnership, yeah.
to implement this thing, but also with the understanding that we don't have that kind of money now, but you know what, I'm going to go out and look for that money so that we have a kitty within the Ministry of Gender, and every time we are advocating and pushing, money is being put there by our partners who want to, you know, change that. So it's not like, hey, we are standing at the door
And we want all those things
you know,
to happen.
education takes, is it 27 or 30% of the national budget, and we want 10%.
Obviously,
because
yeah.
it's not realistic.
Look at how practical then we can implement all those things.
Yes.
Okay, the question about how this money is being utilized is usually a big problem because yes, the budget is it was slashed, fine, but again, we have to make do with what we have now. But then again, when it comes to making sure that this money goes to the right intended purpose, and that is to make sure, at least as of now, like Madam Senator says, we have pads for these girls. But what about that woman who can't afford to get a pad? What about that woman, the girl when she leaves school, right, and she's not able to afford? You know what happens in such instances, right? Yeah,
I think I'll definitely let the senator speak more to the, you know, how the funds are used if she wants to comment on it. What I do know is that there's always different stories being told.
Yeah.
So previously, the cabinet secretary, I believe for education, you know, may his soul rest in peace, but it mentioned that he believed that the budgetary allocation was being utilized as it's supposed to.
All right.
But implementation partners or those on the ground were saying differently. There's a bit of an accountability gap with regards to how the reporting mechanisms and accountability is done.
All right.
She'll speak more to that. That's our understanding from interacting with the ministry and with CSOs, is that there's an accountability gap.
Okay.
For the women and the girls that you're talking about accessing, again, it goes back to what she's saying about the journey to access. Those of us in the space are doing what we can.
Yeah.
There just needs to be a bigger, larger, coordinated approach. It does need a lot of resourcing. It needs follow-through.
Yeah.
So as Superb CBO, for example, are having dispensers, we have a mini pad factory in Korogosho that makes pads every day, and we're, you know, distributing to the girls around our center. But that's ad hoc, and that's really in pockets. That's pockets of impact.
Yeah.
Still makes a difference because at least you're ensuring that there's a community that is going to go to school. You're ensuring that there's women, because we open the center monthly with women as well to come and collect products. So is it sustainable? Some people might argue it's not, but I'm always saying it's an intervention. We can't also sit here and wait for things to be perfect.
True.
I think what we can do is, in parallel, have this advocacy that we're doing now. The advocacy and activism in parallel with trying to find ways to sustain menstrual justice. Because right now it's not sustainable. To her point about reusable products, that's the dream. But in reality, access to the wash conversation, again, goes hand in hand. I think what we're talking about here is a very multi-layered conversation that needs a lot of different partners to come together. Environmental, water and sanitation, health, education, gender. It literally takes, it has to take almost like a multi-stakeholder technical working committee, whatever name we're going to call it, that's going to kind of try and chart a forward because it affects all those elements of life. Education, gender, water, sanitation, environment. It does, but it's been treated in an isolated manner. And when that happens, I think it tends to be deprioritized.
That's true.
It's like, you're Siki to
Yeah, I mean, you're not the first ones. It's not a new phenomenon. But
I think this is also progress. To be here on a, on a morning show talking about this, you wouldn't have seen this a decade ago.
That's true.
So already, though sometimes it's like, let's count the wins. The frustration is that things have moved very slowly. The hope is, what's different with what the senator, her role, is having somebody from the inside be as vocal is, I think, what has kind of been missing. Is having somebody who has an understanding of the policies, who has the ability to move a bill in motion. That, I think, can maybe birth a new dawn of implementation.
Absolutely.
There have been incredible people in the past who've come forward and spoken out, whether it's in private sector, whether it's in government, but to have somebody who's actively part of the system, I think for me that kind of shifts something a little bit. So hopefully what she's trying to do alongside her colleagues and alongside other allies and partners becomes the new shift that we need to see in the space of menstrual justice.
Absolutely.
If that doesn't happen, then we kind of go. And private sector is big. She's not on screen, but Professor Miriam Sidibe is somewhere. She's somewhere in the studio, and she's a leader and pioneer. She's the founder of Global Hand Washing Day, so she's very big on that. So having people like that. All of us coming together, but having her being able to be front and center in leading in terms of the, parliament issue, then that becomes, I think, a shift. That could potentially put us in the right direction.
Absolutely. Literally, we're being chased out of the studio. I have like 30
Can I just say this?
But yes, I want you to comment on the accountability.
I've been on the other side. I've been on the forefront on period poverty from an NGO perspective, when I was just glow out there. And then now I'm on this side as Senator Gloria, and I'll tell you that it does make a difference. For instance, the moment that thing happened, one of the first people to reach out to me was the Minister Waziri Aisha Juma, Cabinet Secretary of Gender. And because we had been having other conversations because of the bill last year, I said, really, we need to work on this. And she's like, you know what? At least for this quarter till June, we have 410 million, and we're going to push that through so that we make sure that we have, so there was like this instant feedback. Then the next thing is that the next person we had a conversation with was the president, and he's like, I know you're fighting for those things, and we've been pushing, and we had it. I was like, yeah, we had it in the Women Charter, and we have to deliver. He's like, yes, I understand. So for like 2023, 2024 budget allocations is 1 billion, which this will be the first time we are going to have 1 billion allocated to sanitary towels. So I'm really crossing my fingers that we get to the point, and that's why we are pushing for everybody pay taxes and what, because we need to actually fund some of these initiatives. So I will tell you, it does make a difference to be in a position where you can front a bill, be able to lobby that people support it, talk to the president directly, talk to the Minister of Gender, be able to shift. There has been an issue on implementation, and we've been able to convince the president, and he's given a directive that now the whole issue of free sanitary towels will be domiciled in the Ministry of Gender, and then we'll work with education as partners, so because they understand the needs and how to distribute and what mechanism. So just that small, and this has happened in what? 2 weeks. Yeah,
like 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
It does make a difference.
So it doesn't, so in like 2 weeks. So you can imagine if hopefully I'm there for 5 years.
Hopefully you're there. Okay. All right. And I'm sure Yasmin is very happy to hear that, because you made a lot of noise when it comes to the budget slash and all those things. And I know this makes you very, very happy. But then again, so making this a collective responsibility, not just, Senator Gloria's responsibility or Janet's or yours, but everybody included, and even with the men. What would you say very quickly, because Mark is really in my ears, like, you need to get out.
I'd urge the senator to push for maybe creating a technical committee that will hold the government accountable for their promises, as well as include the voices of grassroots women and girls in the technical committee, because we understand our priority needs, and I believe we have the solutions towards the needs. So Senator Gloria, it's my humble request to have the voices of women and girls at grassroots.
I'll talk to Waziri Aisha Juma.
So that let us be part and parcel of that committee that will work towards ending period poverty in Kenya.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes. All right, I would have given you each 10 seconds. Can I, like 10 seconds each, really, for the passing shot as far as the kind of conversations that we need to have moving forward? We've made noise. We are having these conversations. What actions, do we need to see from today?
Moving forward. I feel like it's being summarized really well with both of them. And like I said, it's great that she's there now from the inside. That's I think that's going to shift a lot of things. And she has our support, because again, what she's done is turned a decade of noise into a moment of choice for people to say we need to do something. What Yasmin has said as well in terms of integrating voices, I think I'd echo that. Also leading with advocacy and agency is huge. A lot of what we've done over the last few years is to mainstream and normalize the conversation.
Yes.
I know that sometimes we have a moment like this happen and people still come back and say, do you stain? But the truth is there's been a lot of learning over the last few years. There's been a lot more normalization of it. So there just needs to be an integrated approach. The conversation, the policy, the committee, the implementation, they have to go hand in hand. And more than that, let's normalize this. Let's normalize it. We've been saying it to death. These are our bodies. We love them. There's nothing wrong with our bodies. There's nothing wrong with our health.
It's natural.
But when you constantly weaponize us for something that's really natural, body shaming happens when we're having our period, when we're pregnant. It's every day. And what that does, we're lucky. We're here. The three of us have agency. We're bold. We can speak out. Millions of others can't. So they're reduced to, we can't do anything beyond this. It's, you know, periods. There's a very famous saying that periods should end a sentence, not a girl's education.
I mean,
so let's lead with that.
Listen, Janet is a communicator. She can talk forever. Okay. Gloria, I would give you the last
I'm just
word.
saying,
2 seconds, yes.
End this period shaming. And I want to say that the only way to end this is to normalize the whole conversation. And luckily, we have a president who appreciates that women actually have menstruation. And he's very chill about it, and he was like, Gloria, what happened? I was like, imagine I just had an accident. So the good thing is we have the political goodwill from directly from the president. We have a superb minister, cabinet secretary Aisha Juma, who has gone through some of the things that we're talking. So this is not So I'm telling you, that's the plus. So now we just need to put in the work and make things happen.
Make things happen. I like that. You've already started. It's a good thing. Okay. Thank you very much. Madam Senator Gloria Orwoba, nominated Senator Janet Mbugo, media personality and founder in Wadada Foundation, as well as Yasmin Mohammed, founder, Superb. And this is a community-based organization. Ladies, we can have this conversation for hours. But we have to say goodbye right now. Thank you so much for coming. Unfortunately, we could not go through all your feedback. But again, keep the conversation going online. And that is at NTV Kenya, both on Facebook and on Twitter, and on our YouTube channel as well. And that is at NTV Kenya. So stay safe, keep the conversation going, and let's take action. I'll see you tomorrow morning, same time, same place. Goodbye for now.
Jik cleans and kills 99.9% of illness-causing germs and